Okay, so before we start, I'm going to make assumptions about you watching this. Number one is you have an interest in making music in your own style. This video will not explain my thought process when I make music right away. This is just an introduction to how you manage to get sounds out of your computer to begin with. Number two is you have at least a basic understanding of music, as in if I show you a keyboard and I tell you to play a D, you're not gonna be like,
I like your funny words, Magic Man.
While knowing how to play an instrument would also be neat, you don't technically need to learn what I'm going to teach. Just know that I'll use some basic words like pitch, measures, and more. And if you're not aware of what these means in the musical world, then you best start by learning about these. Number three is you have a computer, which I hope, considering you're watching this, although you might be watching it on a phone or tablet. In any case, if you want to use the same program as I do, you'll either need to hackerman your way into getting it for PC or just get a Mac, because I use a Mac to make music and the program I use is exclusive to Apple products. Speaking of which, so the first question that someone might have when they listen to this is, aren't there real musicians playing for you? As in, they expect me to have a musician trapped in my basement ready to play a song whenever I'm done writing it, which, for legal reasons, I need to deny.
FBI, open up!
In reality, I use a specific program that will play what's called MIDI for me. Think of it as if that program was a musician, just a musician and nothing else. Unless you tell them what to play and give them an instrument to play with, that musician will not do a lot. So what you need to do is exactly that. You have your musician, now tell them what to do and with what to do it. There are tons of programs that can do this. I personally use GarageBand because it's free, it's easy, and that's the one I learned with, and frankly it has everything I need in it, so I never felt the need to change it. But if you're looking for fancier ones, programs like Ableton, Logic, and FL Studio work well with it, though you need to pay for those, I think. These programs are once again just the musician part of the equation. Now we need something for it to play and an instrument for them to play. Luckily, most programs like these also come with their own thing that we call a library of sound, which is the instrument part of this overly convoluted metaphor. These libraries are exactly what I say they are, instruments that you can give a specific track of your program to play with. Now, GarageBand has a pretty bad quality of sounds considering it's free. I can easily understand, and if you want to know how they sound like, just listen to any song I've made before my first ever remastered song. So in other words, this remaster is basically just a change in my library of sound. Now I use East-West sounds, which is compatible with GarageBand. If you see me work, you'll often see me open a window called Play, which loads and plays the East-West sound instruments in GarageBand. Next is the score part of the equation, aka what you tell your musician to play with the instruments you gave them. This is the already mentioned MIDI. So MIDI is a file type, .mid, which contains information readable by most music programs. It contains a string of information that includes the following: the order in which notes need to be played, the pitch of the notes, the length of the notes, and the velocity of the notes. So when you open a MIDI file in GarageBand, it will automatically read all of those and usually have some of its bass instruments associated with it. So where do you get these MIDI files? Well, there are plenty of places to choose from. I use multiple websites I gathered through mainly using Google searches, but in a lot of YouTube Synthesia tutorial, people will also have links to download the MIDI. If there are no MIDI files for a song and you really want to work on it, not everything is lost, as music programs will also let you create your own MIDI. In this case, you'll have two options. You can create the file directly in the program you'll use. For instance, I can create it in GarageBand, which means I don't need to export it. Or you can make it in a program that can export MIDI, like MuseScore. In any case, find a sheet music or any way for you to be able to read a song and individually input the notes yourself in the program, creating your own MIDI. I personally only started downloading already made MIDI when I started working on my Left Behind orchestration. So if you look back at every other song before it, they were effectively all done by hand, which I don't do anymore because it is time consuming and plenty of things can go wrong and mess up your whole song. So now that you have your program and your MIDI, it is time to get to part 3.
My God! Okay, it's happening! Everybody stay calm!
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Wait.
Everybody calm down! No!
So you have your MIDI files imported into your program, which should usually give you something that looks like this. When you do so, you'll want to create a lot more MIDI tracks within the program and associate them all with the instrument you want. You can do so progressively as you make the song, which is what I usually do, or you can decide from the get-go that you'll place and load all the instruments beforehand. The choice is yours. Next is the actual orchestration part, aka the part that you've been waiting for. It's a simple association game, where there isn't really a way to lose, unless you consider a bad sounding output to be a loss. In any case, now it's time for your artistic sense and imagination to run wild. You can take the MIDI and rearrange it in the way you want for each instrument throughout the whole length of the song. This is by far the longest process and is where you'll have to practice and innovate the most. I might expand on a part 2 of this tutorial depending on this video's reception to talk about my actual thought process when I orchestrate, but for now, we'll just get to part 4. The last part is simply the audio mixing. I usually work on it at the same time as the orchestration part to make it easier to balance out the audio, but a revisit to the overall song is usually still necessary. For this, I actually hire someone to help with the mixing since I'm not that great at it, nor do I have the proper tools to make it, but it never hurts to give it a try yourself. And there you have it! This video has been a long time in the making, mainly because I never knew how to properly word it and due to technical difficulties, but I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial and make the best of it. Cheers!